You ever play a chess game where your knights or your opponent's knights start fumbling around the board? You know, you think they maybe had a bit too much sauce, if you know what I mean? Well, if you want to see a game where I crushed an 1800 whose knights got a little woohoo, then make sure you stick around. Well, hello there. I'm playing with the black pieces in this game. We have a little Karo Khan. If you know me, you know that's the only thing I play against d4. And we have a little exchange here, you know, d4, and we develop some pieces out to squares, castles, you know, knight f6. This is all just standard stuff. You see, it's very equal according to the engine, just because we're both very casually just bringing out our knights, building up a little pawn chain, castling our kings, you know. Except here, my opponent decides for no reason at all, zero provocation with any like h6 or anything of that sort, just takes my knight. This is not good. You don't want to do that. You see, it drops a little bit to black's favor and then back to equal here. It's just because there's no reason to give up the bishop, right? Now I have the bishop pair, which is very nice to have. And bishops are generally better than knights. Generally. Not always, but if you don't have a good reason to give away the bishop, then you shouldn't just be taking the knight for no reason. But hey, my opponent didn't like his bishop. He wants to keep his knights around. He wants his knights to party a little bit in this game. We'll see what I mean. So bishop takes f6. We bring the knight out to d2 here, the b knight, and I castle. Okay. We have rook coming to the center. I bring my rook to the c file here, looking to maybe play some minority attack over here, throw these pawns, try to break up what he's got going on over here, make my bishop come alive, perhaps the knight jumping in. There's always fun tactics if the queen ends up on the c-file and the knight can try and take some pawns or something like that. So the rook on the c-file is pretty good. And this is where things get a little silly goofy from my opponent. The knight going back to f1, which, okay, I did see for a second it popped up as one of the top moves, but just because it's technically okay, why are you doing it? There's no need. You should play something like maybe h3 to make my bishop make a decision, maybe playing a4 to start expanding, gaining space over here, something like that. Or maybe even like rook c1 to try and play c4. Something. Instead of just going back. Why are you doing this? The knight's getting a little, Okay, so I bring my rook to the e-file, thinking maybe I want to play e5, especially now that my opponent's being pretty passive over here. I feel like I'm going to be the one starting to press on the gas pedal. And I'm trying to maybe push this, open things up, so I'm getting my rooks to the center. You notice I'm leaving my queen on her starting square here. I don't know where she wants to go quite yet, so I'm leaving the queen where it is right now. We have h3, finally, and I decide to go back. I don't want to trade, and knight g3. This makes sense. Going back to f1, but coming to g3 like this makes sense. It hits my bishop. I still don't want to trade for the knight, so I drop back to g6. Now I've got these bishops kind of laser pointing over here, and I know this bishop looks like it's kind of staring at this pawn chain, not doing a whole much, but imagine e5 happens, and the center kind of opens up, then this bishop could come alive on the diagonal. Okay, so let's see what we have. Bishop d3. Looks like I'm not going to be able to hang on to my light squared bishop much longer. There's not really anything I can do about it. That's okay. But instead of just trading and allowing my opponent's queen to get active, I decide, okay, you know what? You can have my light squared bishop, but I'm going to use this time to play a6, which isn't the most exciting move in the world, but it does help me prepare b5. That was kind of my plan, is to start playing b5, which I talked about earlier, right? Pushing this pawn to b4, maybe trying to break this up, bring my pieces out behind the pawns, and see what we can do, right? No, I'm sure they're enjoying the video, but I still don't think they're gonna like or even hit the subscribe button. I mean... Back to the video, guys. So my opponent does take my bishop on g6. I take towards the center, because if I had taken with the f pawn, yeah, you could argue I get the f-file, but this pawn is very weak now. It is now a backwards pawn, stuck. It can't march forward. and it has no neighbor pawns to protect it because this pawn has been pushed. So this pawn's going to be a target for the rest of the game. This knight may be jumping in here and blockading me. The queen and the other rook are just going to pile up and eventually win that pawn. So tick towards the center to keep my pawn chain well intact. All right, so let's see. Oh my goodness, knight h2. Are you kidding me? Are you flippin' kidding me? Knight h2? What is this knight f1, knight h2? Ah! I wanted to swear. But I want to keep this family friendly. All right, we got the two knights over on the king side, and they're... I don't know, man. I don't know. We have knight h2. I couldn't tell you. I don't know if he wants to go here, because even if he does move the knight to g4, I'm just going to move my bishop somewhere. Either there, or even back, because I'm not going to want him to be able to take, right? So I don't know what his idea is here. Maybe he wanted to play f4 or something. Maybe he wanted to push the f pawn, but the knight was in the way, so he tries to do this. But that wouldn't be great, because, let's see, if I play this and he does go for that, well, this is not great just because, I mean, the dark squares now around your king. The knight is pinned here, and the queen is going to get in this pawn here, and it's just no good weakening these dark squares. And these knights make zero sense on those squares. So, let's see. Instead of that, he goes back to h2, and I push e5. Here we go. Here we go. Because I saw the knights were a little inebriated, and I thought, okay, enough is enough. It's time to open this thing up. It's time, all right? Here we go. I just slammed the knights on the table. That's what the sound was. All right, so we have e5. He takes. Great. Let's take. I take with the bishop. I had a few options, right? I have the rook, I have the knight, and the bishop. I didn't want to take with the knight because now my bishop is blocked, and the knight isn't really doing anything here, and, you know, this doesn't do too much on that square. But if the bishop takes... Now I'm kind of trying to play d4 and maybe queen c7 to pile up on the knights over here that are looking very silly. Very silly. Okay, we have queen g4. This doesn't do a whole lot. I mean, if I gave him a few moves, then he might be able to play... oh boy, I can't even really, like, knight back to f3 and, like, here and try to, like, move the queen and then mate me, except it's not even mate because I'd be able to run away, and then he gives a check, but I just run, and that's if he got, like, 5 moves in a row, and it still doesn't result in mates, so, yeah, okay. We have queen g4, I go ahead and play queen c7, lining up the cannons, little menu. Lining up the cannons over here on the diagonal, hitting this knight. It is well defended at the moment, but it ties the queen down. So now if the queen moves away, I'm going to end up, you know, taking and opening up the king, winning a pawn, and having a good time. And if this knight moves away, well, then I take the knight on h2, right? The knight is kind of pinned here because they're very silly. So here, the knights, you know, they've been... here for a minute. They decided to get another sip of whatever they're sipping. And the knight goes back to f1. What is happening? The knight goes back to f1. It's like it tried to get up to go sing a karaoke, and it couldn't make it up the one step to get to the microphone, and it stumbled back to f1. Like, I don't know. The idea, I think, is just to add defense to the knight, so now the queen can move away. But still, this is just way too passive. The knight went from, let's see, here to d2, to f3, to h2, to f1. And then this knight, what did it do? Or no, it went here and then here, my bad. It went to f1 and then g3. And then this knight went from g1 to f3, back to h2, and back to f1. This is very silly. I don't even know what's going on. I couldn't even remember because of all the knight moves. It's insane. They've been like half of his moves. So I play rook e6. The idea of rook e6 is maybe I want to double rooks, and maybe... I mean, the main idea was to go to the f-file, right? A little rook lift action, trying to get over here and stare at this pawn, which is looking pretty weak, because I'm trying to take advantage of these dark squares, right? I'm going to move my queen maybe, start piling up, and it's going to be a good time over there. So he moves his rook over to d1, bringing it to the center. I go ahead and play rook d8, because he was indeed attacking my pawn, so I just defend it. All right, we have h4. My opponent's starting to get a little aggressive. He's being like, I'm getting a lot of pressure here. I don't like that. I'm gonna try and start something of my own. Except the problem is, white is not in a position to be doing that. White needs to figure out how to untangle these pieces, not try and start some attack when there's no attack. Because guess what? Even if there was something like h5 and I take and he takes, well, I'm just gonna get my rook over to the h file or something, and now I have this big like thing brewing over here on the king side with the open h file. It's gonna benefit me. So yeah. All right, let's go back for a moment. He plays h4, and here queen b6. Queen b6 attacks the b2 pawn and also tries to play d4 possibly and stares at that f2 pawn that I was planning on putting pressure on, right? Okay, so let's see what happens. We got queen f3. I go ahead and naturally play rook f6. Queen f3 went to add pressure to my pawn here on d5, but I hit the queen, and the queen's not going to take because you would lose a queen, and that is how we say a bad move in proper chess terms. So I hit the queen moves here. Okay, the queen is on e3. Do I trade queens? No. Why? Well, I'm trying to attack, and I'm trying to checkmate white, and if I trade the queens, I probably won't be able to do that. Okay, and I also have my rook piling up here. This bishop is ready to deploy, maybe take, maybe push, maybe, add pressure. That's the whole idea, right? So I go ahead and play d4. d4, because after takes, bishop takes. There was this crazy thing here where after, what is it? Here, the best move, the computer actually said to take on b2, which is kind of crazy. I mean, not a lot of crazy, just a little bit of crazy. I figured because I didn't want to lose my central pawn, right? I didn't want to lose my central pawn. But after rook takes, if you take back, you lose. I mean, you've already lost if you take that central pawn, apparently, because now you have this bishop takes g3 tactic, and if you try to take the rook here, then you get checkmated. Force mate in 2. Look at this. Look at that. Look at that. So you can't do that. And if you don't take the rook here, like this, if you try to take the bishop back, well, then you lose your rook there, and that's no good. Okay, what else can you do after bishop takes? Well, nothing. Computer says rook d1. Which just allows queen takes f2 anyway. And after, rook here, it's just, yeah, it's bad news bears. Okay, but I did not see that. Instead, I play this, d4, takes, bishop takes. Bishop takes, whoop, skewers, basically, the queen to the f2 pawn. Because now I'm about to have the rook, the bishop, and the queen staring at the f2 pawn. Oh, it's going to be a grand old time over there. So the queen... apologies. I was going to say the queen moves out of the way. No. The rook sacrifices itself. This is necessary. It is the best move according to the engine. Because what else are you going to do? If you move your queen, right, then I just take. I just take, and after the king moves away, you don't even take the rook. That's the thing. You go rook e6. Rook e6, you hit the queen, right? And you have to sacrifice the queen, otherwise you're just going to lose everything. So you have to do this. Because if you try something else, like rook d8, maybe, knight d8, and if the queen moves, well, it's bad. It's bad. It's bad. You're threatening this too, because this knight is pinned. So, yeah. All right, so the rook sacrifices itself, and here I do take with the queen and offer the queen trade. I do this because I'm up 2 pawns. I am up, well, not 2 pawns, excuse me, 2 points of material. I am up in exchange, and I figure I can win this endgame, especially, with how passive he is and how weak this pawn is. Speaking of which, I take the pawn, so I'm up 3 points of material now. Oh yeah, we're having a good time. And thus begins the moment where the knights have passed out and the queen is trying to clean up their mess by just running around to random squares and hoping that I mess up. Okay, so I go here, preparing to, I trade rooks here like this and drop my queen back, just defend everything. So there's no counterplay at all. I drop my knight back to try and reroute to a better square. And we do just that. The knight decides to take. Okay, I take back. This is all pretty simple here. All I have to do now, the knight finally tried to get up, except he kind of had to stay there. You know why? Because of check. And the king moves. Check. And after g3, it's mate. It's mate. Yeah. Queen h6. Yeah. Yeah. Because even if you sack the queen, right? King's got to move to g2. And it's mate. Woof. And if you don't sack the queen, if you just go here, then it's still mate. Wow. Wow. Those knights, let's instant replay real quick. Let's find out. So the knight, right, came out to d2. And then it went to f1. And then it went to g3. What is this? And then the f3 knight went to h2 to f1. This is insane. I don't even know, man. This is crazy. All right, well, hey, if you made it to the end of this video, I just want to thank you. As always, make sure you like the video if you did like the video. Subscribe, I would appreciate that. Feel free to leave me a comment below. Let me know what you thought of this video. Give me suggestions for future ones. Let me know if your knights ever start stumbling around like this, if you're low on time or just don't know what to do in a certain position. All right, well, that's all I've got for you today. Have a good one, guys.